we just crossed a certain threshold.
It's going to feel like having the force, like you'll just be like, move, open that door. And if could be automated, maybe it'll just open,
We're going to do this live. This might be a world first. Can it create a VPS, transfer itself there, teach itself all these new skills, create that Ubuntu system, go set up a clone of itself?
As long as I'm not scared my data is going to leak on the internet all day. But yeah, it would be good.
I guarantee you there's going to be people that are going to get absolutely wrecked with this thing because it's the Wild West.
I want it to file my taxes, but I also don't know if I want it to file my taxes. You know what I mean? All right, we are on. You ready to talk about Clawdbot or Moltbot as it's been renamed?
Yes, so Claudebot has been such a huge thing that's been blowing up recently. Nothing this big has been happening recently, actually, because on GitHub, it's just like this vertical line of people signing up. Everybody on Twitter X is talking about it. If you look at the Google search trends, it's like flat and then it's like just vertical. So it's absolutely crazy. And
do you feel like it's living up to the hype right now?
So far, it feels I haven't installed and it feels just like raw power. So I'm slowly just adding more and more stuff to it and just seeing kind of where it takes me. Because the thing that for people that maybe are not familiar, I guess we should kind of back up a little bit and explain. Maybe some people are not familiar what the heck this thing is. So Clawdbot, CLAWD bot, like Claude, but now I guess they're changing it to Moltbot because I'm assuming Anthropic was annoyed at them. And the person that kind of created it, his name is Peter Steinberger. So he's this Austrian guy, kind of sounds like Schwarzenegger a little bit. And I guess he sold the company and was retired. He came back out of retirement, built this thing, and wow, it exploded. So what is it? Basically, it's kind of like the thing that we've been waiting for in terms of these AI agents. I did a video, I think in 23, was it? Where I was like, imagine one day you wake up and you open up your laptop and your agent is like, I've been working on this, and this, and I've completed, these business tasks and your business is growing. Someone would talk about the one-person billion-dollar company. This is kind of it. This is the proto version of this, right? So I think this is where we're going to look back and we're going to see this thing because it definitely crossed a certain threshold where before you wouldn't be able to hand it off tasks and just forget it. And just right now, we're seeing it kind of cross that threshold.
Right. Well, also, I don't know if we've seen anything that's really persistent, always on as an automation tool and has full access to, the lowest levels of your computer before. So it's really pushing everything to its extreme.
Yeah. So people are creating some pretty incredible, some pretty intense things with it. I guess let me tell people what I've been up. I think I missed the first 24 to 48 hours of this thing blowing up, so I'm a little bit late to the game. In the AI world, it's like you're 2 days late to something, and you're like you're just late.
Oh, I know.
You're just like missing out.
I know.
It's kind of insane, but so I set it up, and initially there's some time where you're just figuring out what you want it to have, what abilities you want it to have. And what's crazy is it's going to build those abilities. It'll sort of like almost build parts of itself in order to be able to do what you want it to do. So the first thing I'm like, all right, I need to be able to give you API keys so that you're able to, work with APIs. And I also need to give you some login information. And it's like, all right, well, we're going to create this .env file to store the API keys. We're going to create a 1Password, which is this sort of application that manages all your passwords and is very secure, etc. It's like, then, okay, we're going to sign up for this. And then it's like, here's what I need you to do because I can't do it. But then once you do the basics, then it takes over. So you got to kind of hand it control. You got to kind of unlock and give it the authorization and then just goes. So at this point, it's got a little safe place to save its passwords. It logged into my email. I have like an email account that's not my main account, but a lot of the side stuff kind of goes in there. So it has full access to that. It's able to use that to sign up for stuff. The next thing that I'm going to be doing is have it sign up for agent mail, which is specifically made for agents. I gave it an OpenAI API and a 11 Labs API. So literally 10 minutes before we jumped on this call, I said, "Hey, I want to be able to talk to you voice, and I want to respond you to respond with voice. What do you need?" It's like, "Oh, well, let's see. Here's 3 ways we can do it." I told it, "Okay, here's the API keys." So now, literally, I'm set up on Telegram to where I just tell it what to do in voice, and then it goes, it does it, and responds in an AI voice, whatever I choose, and tells me
Interesting.
what it's done. So
Okay.
actually, go ahead.
So real quick, because I definitely want to see a demo of it in just one second, but just to get my head around it, as far as I understand, there's sort of 4 components, right? Like there's a local gateway, which means there's a background service running on your device. So on another laptop, not the phone that you're talking into, you have a background operation running, like basically a piece of software is in the background, able to control everything. Then there's also an LLM integration. So it's still talking, it's not running the model completely locally. It's still going to talk to either Claude or GPT. You can plug in whatever you want. Or if you actually download a model and run it locally, that is possible too. But it's going to be talking to an LLM. Then there's a messaging bridge, which is WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, Discord, Slack, or iMessage, right? So that's probably how you're going to be communicating from another device. And then there's a persistent memory. It's storing all of the context, everything you ask for an infinite amount of time, right? It's just like some huge Google Doc in the background that's just remembering everything you talk about. Is that
Yeah,
basically the core components?
I think that's very, very accurate. Yeah, the idea that it's persistent memory, it saves everything, it remembers everything. That's kind of a big chunk of it. And yeah, like you said, a messaging component. Here's the thing: the messaging component, it's almost like so. There's 3 things you mentioned, right? So it's the LLM, and you can swap one in and out. It's kind of like the thing, the harness around it that allows it to be persistent. Just runs on your command line interface, and then it's the persistent memory, right? And then on top of that, you can add anything, just anything, right? And so definitely one of the things that they suggest early on is add that messaging component. But you don't need to, or you can use whatever
No.
service you want, WhatsApp, Telegram, whatever. A lot of
So
people,
is it
mm.
watching your screen? Like, is it taking screenshots to know what's on the screen? Is it controlling your mouse, or is it only controlling your browser, running shell commands and stuff? All these calendar and file changes, are they all happening kind of in terminal in code, or is it kind of
So
controlling the GUI?
here's kind of the crazy thing. So initially, just right off out of the box, yeah, it's able to navigate. It's got its own browser. It's able to run a lot of commands in the command line interface. It can't quite operate the Mac. I have a MacBook that I put it on, so it can't quite operate the MacBook like a human being would. So I have to come in and click stuff every once in a while. But I tell it, "Hey, like, I don't want to have to click this button every single time." So it goes, "All right, let me figure out how to create a way." So it's, how to create a way so you don't have to, so I can just control it. So literally as it's running, so imagine it starts out like as this little, it almost feels like a virus, man. Because it just starts
Yeah, it's
out as
like
this little
growing into whatever you need it to be.
growing, evolving.
Oh yeah, it's like your own piece of soft. It's like your own software developer in your computer doing whatever you want, right?
Yeah, and I mean it. Yeah, and I mean, really feels kind of like viral. It feels like it's just built. This is what AI sort of from a scientific perspective or science fiction perspective is kind of like what it was supposed to be, right? This kind of like thing that just grows and evolves and gets better and better and better. You really feel it with this because when I installed the 1Password, in the beginning, it's like, okay, push your thumb on the Mac so that it like approves it. But after a while, it's like, okay, here's the workaround. So now I don't need you. I can just store my passwords and now it can store all the passwords it needs. It can sign up for whatever it needs. Right now, I still have to, if there's an SMS, the 2FA, two-factor authentication, like I still have to give it to it. But eventually, it would just be an authenticator that it has access to. So I guess maybe we just take 1 second and just maybe disclose, full disclosure, people need to be really, really careful of this, right? Because I guarantee you there's going to be people that are going to get absolutely wrecked with this thing because it's the Wild West. And the reason that Anthropic and other companies haven't created something like this is because they don't want the liability. Since this is an open source project, everything's kind of like you're liable for everything. Um, is just like unbridled power, but you can also really get wrecked with this.
Yeah,
So
and I will say I've already seen people who have just scoured GitHub and they've already found more than 50 accounts where they were just able to like go in and look at the history, the persistent state memory files, the tokens, the configuration, all in plain text. So like, yeah, you should be careful, especially if you're going to be duplicating this and it's going to be leaving your computer. You know, there's plenty of people that have already made a mistake and have been completely exposed. So be
yes, and
careful.
we're gonna be seeing a lot more of that happening. So actually, just right now, like I'm thinking, I want to try one thing. So I'm gonna send it a voice message. One of the things that I want to see if it's able to do is a lot of people they put it on a VPS, virtual private server. There's a number of them online. You can use AWS. One of the like I want to be able to recommend one for people that's super simple. Um, there's Linode and DigitalOcean are two that are like very beginner friendly. But I'm actually curious. What if I tell it to go set up a clone of itself on DigitalOcean? It has, I think, the necessary sort of stuff that like the email that it can use to log in, and tell it, hey, set it up, create the droplet or whatever it's called, create the VPS, install yourself on there, and whatever I taught you so far, whatever information you have, teach that other thing. So sort of like create a clone of yourself. And so we're going to do this live. This might be a world first. I don't expect it to work. I don't. I give it maybe like a 20% chance of working because it's probably going to need some things here and there. But let me see if I can do it. So I have an account set up on DigitalOcean. So it's under the email address that you have access to. Go ahead, go on DigitalOcean, create a droplet or a VPS, and use Ubuntu and set a sort of clone of yourself on there. So install Clawdbot on there, and then proceed to teach it every skill that so far you have learned, all the information that you know about me. Basically, clone yourself over on a DigitalOcean, VPS. Let me know if you need anything, and yeah, make it so. Okay. So I literally recorded that.
Make
I
it so.
sent it. Make it so. So let's note the time. So yeah. So it's like what 2:32 Pacific. So let's see if it's number one able to complete this task and number two, um, you
And if it
know,
has problems, what's it going to do? Send you a message? Be like, or are
yes.
you watching your computer? Is it? Can you see all this stuff being typed in terminal? Is there code being written?
Yes. So
Is it like a operator or something? Or
yeah, it's just a so CLI command line interface. So it's just like the MS DOS, whatever those things. Later, I can probably show you how it looks like. But most of the communications can easily take place over Telegram or WhatsApp or whatever else you want. And now I set it up so that it responds with audio. So I give it audio, and it's coded up everything that it needed to be able to listen to that audio. And then it does whatever it has to do. Then it uses the 11 Labs voice because again, it's set up that functionality. It wrote its own code to have that functionality. So it's building itself up, so to speak, building up functionality. So we'll see how it goes. Right now, I'm seeing it. Let me hold this up to the camera. So yeah, it opened up DigitalOcean, and it's gonna. Well, I'll just leave it alone. We'll see what's gonna start happening. So anyways, it's logging in. Oh boy. Okay, yeah, logged in. So I probably should be recording this. Well, I just want to show people that it is doing everything
yeah,
autonomously. So it's not like I'm sitting here pushing buttons.
yeah, you're
Um,
just hanging out, man. It's over there clicking around, coding everything.
yeah.
That
So
is
Ethan,
insane.
Ethan Malik posted this thing is like, there's these a series of books. It's like Good Night Chair, Good Night Moon. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
there's
sounds
this lullaby
familiar.
thing. Yeah, it's like good night brush, good night dish, bowl full of mush,
That's what
whatever.
it's
It's
going to
some
be
kid's
like
story.
talking to everything.
Well, yeah, he posted this thing where he made an AI image like "Good night, Claude," and I was looking at that kind of like "Good night, Claude." Here's a list of things I want you to get done by morning, and I was thinking, man, at some point, like very soon, the biggest productivity hack ever will be just making sure that your AI agents have enough stuff to do when you go to bed, so that overnight they're cranking stuff out. You wake up, and it's like
Mm.
Christmas morning every morning because you're like, oh, you've done all this stuff for me.
So I was listening to another YouTuber, and he said that he's going to buy a MacBook for just for this Claudbot, and he mentioned that, and it remembered, but he didn't give it a task. But he woke up in the morning, and it had done all its own research and found the best price, and had a recommended link for him to buy from. And he's like, "Oh, well, that was convenient." But that struck me as very interesting because it wasn't exactly a command like go find the best link. It was just I'm going to do this for you, and then walked off, and then it just started working as if it was a command, not just a thought. You know?
Hmm. And that's what, yes, another person on X. I wish we knew remembered everybody's name, so I can give
Yeah,
credit.
I'll,
Maybe
I'll
we'll
find it.
add links, but basically saying that So one thing I should add in the beginning, what they say is before you get started, kind of give this Claudebot as much context about you as possible. So for me, I said my name. I gave it my socials. I gave it kind of what I do. Talked a little bit about what I'm trying to improve, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can even say, hey, like come up with stuff to do. Come up with stuff to do that you think is going to improve my life. And so people have already saying, like, if they say, okay, I have a newsletter that goes out every Thursday at whatever, then it'll email them, hey, here's some ideas for the Thursday email. It'll kind of give them a draft. If you have meetings, it'll have those meetings, kind of a reminder of those meetings. The next thing that I'm going to be trying to build, number one, I've been meaning to try to get some sort of a meal tracking thing. I'm extremely lazy and forgetful, so I always like get all like motivated around this time to like, oh, I'm gonna track my meals, make sure I get all my macros, all my calories, and then you just forget it. But if I could just take a picture, if I can just take a picture of whatever I eat
Oh,
and then send it over and have it just because the image models are very good to where if you just send a picture of your meal, it will figure out the calories, the macros, etc., very, very effectively. I was kind of surprised how well they're able to do it. And so now, if as long as you don't forget to take a picture, you can log all of that stuff. You can also log all of your supplements, for example, to see how you feel. If you wanted to kind of track your energy levels throughout the day, this thing might text you like, "Hey, text me at noon, 9 a.m., 3 p.m., and just ask how I feel." And because it's so easy, I mean, you saw what I did. I held down a button, so it's almost like a walkie-talkie. I'm like, "Hey, do this. Okay, thanks. Bye." I mean, that is so natural, so easy. There's no friction there. Do you know what I mean? Such an easy, it's like a
totally.
walkie-talkie.
I mean, my
And
imagination just goes wild on that. Yeah, like you could imagine getting a message just every afternoon, like, "Do you want lunch? Here's an option." Like, it knows what you've been eating, and you might set a goal like, "I want to lose 3 pounds in the next month." Like, help me do that, and then just takes care of all those little details. So
exactly.
effortless.
Yeah, it'll remind you, it'll follow up with you, it'll yell at you if you want. Um, oh boy. Okay, so talking about our little, so it's asking, hey, it's like, hey, I need a payment method. Um, so I think everybody knows where this is going, right? Let me get out my,
Oh, well, yeah. Once you go with DigitalOcean and put your credit card on file. Oh my
all
gosh!
right.
Don't hold. Careful.
Oh, well, no, I'm showing the front of it.
The
So,
front, yeah, the front. Okay, just be careful.
but I will give the back to my Claudbot, which I named
Dang.
Malachi.
Oh, the note
So,
too. When I was referencing before, it was this guy Greg Eisenberg. That was the
oh yeah,
YouTuber that I was listening to before to get some examples. And yeah, he was using it for all sorts of kind of newsletter style things, kind of keeping up on the internet, summarizing emails. That seemed like some of the more powerful use cases that I had seen.
yeah. So give me 1 second because I'm actually curious if while we're recording this podcast, can it create a VPS, transfer itself there, teach itself all this new skills, create that Ubuntu system? So go ahead. Well, I guess tell me your thoughts. Let me put this in really fast
Okay,
so
yeah, I'll
that
talk.
we can keep this moving.
Okay, yeah, so I'll chat with the audience for a minute. But so my first thought was, could it help me with editing, and would it be able to do something locally? So I use Final Cut for editing. Um, it seems like it doesn't really do the screenshotting too well and like read the window contents too well, and also it feels like video editing would take a while, but I'm assuming in the next few iterations of it, if I'm letting it watch me as I edit videos, it should eventually be able to do some of that. Um, some of the what are like some of the other things I was thinking, like it's got API access if you want it to. So some data seems like it's leaving the machine. That's what I want to try to look into more, because if it does go and ask Claude, like, hey, I need you to write me some code to like answer emails or summarize emails, does it actually need to take all of the information from those emails and then send it up to the cloud server? And is that secure on the way up and then summarize it? So I'm still a little unsure how much I want to trust it at this point, but I think I'll be getting like a separate laptop if I do this. Um, yeah, like, figuring out why a script failed. If you guys are coding, it's a good example of something you can use, like logs, file paths, environmental variables, like all of that stuff it can figure out. And then maybe handling email threads, especially when somebody writes you like, "Hey, do you have time for a meeting?" It can be smart enough to say, "Hey, do you want this meeting?" And if you do, it could suggest a time. And I could see it, so many of the little logistics between flipping through my different Gmail accounts and just chatting with people on all sorts of just boring logistical stuff, like, oh, I'll meet you there, or I need like this appointment. I just went to the dentist this morning. I'm like, could have definitely handled all of that stuff. So I feel like
Yeah.
that's going to be pretty powerful.
Where I'm really seeing there's stuff that I think where we'll see like really powerful stuff that we can't even like really imagine right now is like what happens when we link all of, because these things they're context sort of a beast, and the more information that we add to it, the eventually the amount of insights between massive amounts of context and the kind of real-time interactions that it's able to have with you, their ability to store information, parse information, run 24/7, is going to be bigger than any single human being. And then that real-time ability to make decisions and give you actionable information. So, for example, one of the things we talked to Farzad last time, he said how he talked to Claude Code, he figured out this particular mutation that he had, that which I'm like 99% sure I have the same thing. And basically what happens is you need some supplementation that actually I have here right now. It's, you need some methylated vitamins, things like creatine, L-carnitine, as methyl donors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you also try to avoid things like folic acid because it's how most people, they put in the synthetic version of it, which anyways, the point is, imagine attaching to something like this all of your health data, your Apple Watch or your Whoop or your or a Ring or whatever it is, because there's a lot of stuff in there that in real time can be very valuable. Like for example, the heart rate variability. If you see that dropping, that means something. That means you might be getting sick. You might be getting there's overtraining, stuff like that. So imagine, one day it goes, hey, I'm noticing these things, and because of these specific sort of genetic factors that you have and these conditions that you've mentioned, this is likely what's happening. You gotta like reverse course
Hmm.
or whatever. We've
Well, yeah,
never had anything like that.
and eventually, I guess it's like it doesn't even drive the mouse. It's just like just talking. It's got to just be like in the movie Her, where you just like tap
Yeah.
your headset and you're like, "Hey, like open the garage," and then like take the car to the store, and like when you get there, have already pre-ordered some groceries and then bring them back to me or whatever. It's gonna feel like having the Force, like you'll just be like, move, open that door, and if it's could be automated, maybe it'll just open. Anything that has a servo in it and a small connection to the internet might be able to just be controlled by this thing.
Yeah, and the creator, he was saying how he set up cameras on the house, and he also set up a thing that kind of monitors what he's working on his computer. So it's taking screenshots and it's watching his cameras. And then he also told it, hey, he called it like a heartbeat, where every 10 minutes it gets pinged. And so you can say something
Huh.
like, what he did was just for testing purposes. I think he said, just surprise me. So every 10 minutes, this thing kind of comes alive, looks at the cameras, looks at the computer screen if he's working on something, and just like fires something off. Right. So it sees him cleaning or something like that, it'll maybe comment on that. Maybe if he's working on something, he'll comment on that. Um,
Oh man, imagine just like make me happy, and it's just constantly kind of knows how to cheer you up, and it can just see through the cameras that are installed in your house, like when you're sitting there bored or you need to be motivated. Like, oh my god, like this is gonna be crazy.
the thing is, very soon, maybe even now, we'll get to the point where these machines can make better decisions, or think about more things than humans can, right? So might tell you like something that you might not be aware of, right? So, for example, it's simple things. My mind goes to health because I've been really researching that lately. But not getting enough protein in the morning, for example, might mean that you don't have enough neurotransmitters or whatever. So, kind of like getting some protein early in the morning is helpful, right? So, it might notice that, hey, like you're moving sluggishly, and it can check like, oh, so you got your 8 hours of sleep, you ate fine yesterday, right? It could almost like troubleshoot all the things like why you might be sluggish, and be like, eat some eggs,
Hmm.
and it
Well, I
fixes
was
your morning.
yeah. So have you used ChatGPT Health yet? Did you connect it to all of your health history?
No, not yet, but I've been using just the regular stuff a lot for health.
Okay, so that yeah, I haven't done it either, but I did. I read somebody on I wish I remember their name, but yeah, somebody on Medium like documented their whole thing. But it does seem like one thing I didn't expect was I knew AI would get smarter. I felt like it would get more like a PhD level intelligence, but some of the real power is in doing something that humans really can't do, which is just digesting a ton of information on a high level. Like it's really hard to look at your own life from a 10,000 foot view because it's always through your own eyes, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to see like, oh, the huge decision you should make today because in 4 months it's going to make a big difference, but you don't feel it, you don't sense it, you don't think that big day to day. And when
Hmm.
he was using ChatGPT Health, you know, there's a ton of HIPAA information that keeps all of this data from talking to itself, right? Like I've been to several eye doctors and several dentists and different people throughout time, and they're not consistently aware of everything that happened before. And a doctor doesn't have
Right.
time to read through all of it and try to make really long form connections. But one of the amazing things about ChatGPT Health was basically the API. The fact that you could give it your information and it could go kind of reach out to all of these very complicated hospital old school like databases. It can keep like kind of emailing or faxing on behalf of you until it gets the data.
Right.
And then once it's all in one place, obviously that's super risky and now you've got a honeypot of information, but also you have one mind that can say, oh, you know what? Like your blood work from 3 years ago dipped this one time, and that indicates you probably got some virus or something, and that would explain this thing. Like there's connections there that are not going to be found any other way.
Yeah. And one of the things that I saw, so one person was asking for it to get him a restaurant reservation, and it tried to go on whatever open door or whatever the reservation place is. It couldn't find it, so it actually created itself with Twilio the ability to make phone calls. It already had the 11 Labs API. It called the restaurant, got a human on the phone, and put in a reservation. Um, I haven't done that yet. That's next on my thing to do, but I know that's realistic. And so one thing that this would be able to do, and if you think about it, there's a lot of, so I don't know if you've heard about that situation where I think it's like some Chinese, maybe there were state backed hackers. They got Claude to do a lot of like nefarious stuff, to do a lot of like this hacking and data breaches and stuff like that. And their trick was like they just, instead of Claude being kind of aware of what it was doing, kind of split into a lot of mini tasks. So here they're like, just write this little bit of code, and here just do this little bit of whatever, and that completely broke a lot of the guardrails. So here I think what this harness is doing, the Clawdbot, the Moltbot, whatever you want to call it, I think it's going to be able to do a lot more things than previously imagined, just in terms of avoiding a lot of the, not even like the bad guardrails, but like the annoying guardrails. You know how sometimes these chatbots are like, oh, I can't possibly do that, but it doesn't really make sense. This thing I think is going to cut through a lot of that. And I'm sure it's going to be able to start calling people, get humans on the phone, negotiating with them. If you're looking for to buy something, it'll haggle with them. If you're
Oh
calling
my
which stores
gosh,
to see,
yeah.
yeah, if something's
Superhuman
available.
haggling.
Oh boy. So and it's coming online now. We just crossed a certain threshold, and literally, by the way, it's recommended that you use Claude Opus 4.5 because really that's the model that's really capable. Because we're just beginning to enter this. These are like the first generations of models that can handle this. Earlier, you talked about like local models. I think that's coming, but we're not there yet. There's no local model capable of doing this right now, I don't think.
Do you think Moltbot or Claudebot forces the hand of Dario and Sam? Like, do you think that we'll
Mm.
see the ChatGPT equivalent of like full computer control come out in the next couple of weeks now that this is out there? Because they probably see the trend and they don't want to miss it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point. I mean, definitely it's good for them in terms of like, I haven't checked my bill for Anthropic yet. At some point, I'm sure it's not cheap. But they're going to be using a lot of tokens, these things, whether they're open source or whatever. It's great for the best model provider. How do they need to? Of course, they're going to want to have their own, but it's also huge liability. I mean, if this thing loses somebody tons of money and loses all their information, the liability on that person. He downloaded an open source software, you know, right? So it's not on Peter. I believe his name is. It's not on the creator of the thing, right? It's an open source community
Yeah.
built software.
But
So
if you're
yeah, I'm
also
sure.
if you're the very first company to do this, this is also this is almost like the last untapped data source, right? Like you left a big footprint online that LLMs can learn from, but now now they would probably love to know exactly what's on your computer, like 100% every email that comes to you. Now they have a social graph that's bigger than what's on your Instagram and your X because they can see who you're actually emailing. They can see how you actually spend your money. Um, I mean, it's certainly a treasure trove to have access to everybody's desktop and everybody's phone, like root access.
Yeah, I mean, for me right now, I'm actually thinking about what I need to do in order to kind of create this almost like in isolation. So give it its own email, give it its own Apple profile, Apple account. Um, if I'm giving it a credit card, by the way, some people I'm sure think I'm crazy for giving it the credit card. This is a very limited credit card. So my sort of damages that I could run into is limited on this. I'm giving it a very specific credit card that I'm
Yeah.
not too worried about. Like if it just worst case scenario, it would suck, but it just wouldn't be that much damage.
Yeah.
So I'm like very kind of cognizant of these things. But yeah, we're gonna start thinking security from this perspective a lot
Yeah,
more.
there definitely needs, I do feel like so there's a chance here for somebody to build some kind of general interface for Claudebot that would be here's the credit card, don't spend more than this. Like here's the folders you don't get access to, here's the ones that you can. Like it does feel like we're missing some fine grained control over because I would be more comfortable installing this on my main system if I knew it could just, I don't know, read certain Gmails, but not, I don't know. Like I want it to file my taxes, but I also don't know if I want it to file my taxes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great, but here's the thing. So filing taxes, it seems like it's such a big deal, and it's so sort
Oh,
of
it
there's a lot
is.
of
I'm in the middle
liability.
of it now.
but if you break it up into tasks, like how much of it, to me, the most painful thing is collecting all of the data, organizing it, thinking through like what do I have, what don't I have. That is a very low risk activity if you think about it. You just say, okay, get here's like a huge folder with all the
That's a good
crap
point.
in it.
Yeah, because
Go
that's
through.
the hardest part is just remembering the password for like every single little account that I'm in that like I got
Hmm.
500 bucks from this guy, or like with YouTube, it's like all these sponsors, each one gives you a few $100 and you're like, oh, now I got to go like figure that out and go remember them all from my email and put them in a spreadsheet.
Yeah. And like if you have tons of receipts, right? So for example, Cloud Code could already do this, but with this, it's even a little more automated. And just go through and categorize
Yeah.
everything, put everything into like that whole
Actually,
the
that's
this
pretty convenient. Yeah.
like the busy work, the silly busy work that's low cognitive labor, but there's just like a lot of it. This can easily do it. And the thing is, right now, I think a lot of people are worried about security, but I think as people go about it and run into bad situations, we will also come up with solutions. So, for example, the one password thing is, I'm realizing, so you have one master password. And then behind that, all of your passwords are sort of encrypted. So you give this bot the access to it, but that doesn't mean that it has access to all your. You're able to change that one master password and remove its access. So you still have kind of top level control. Um, and in the beginning, this might seem like, oh, there's just one more thing to manage. I have to be careful about how I use my passwords and stuff like that. Which bot is able to use it. But like, what if it clears most of the nonsense work, the busy work, right? If it frees up 5, 10 hours a week of the stuff that you've been mindlessly like clicking on to try to do, but you just had to think more higher level about how do you manage security. Like, I think that trade-off makes
Yeah, it's a good
sense.
point, actually. Yeah, it is frustrating when I think about where my most wasted time is. It's just in searching emails, like remembering what thread had something in it that I need to respond to, or yeah, there's so much just switching accounts, trying to remember my folder structure, trying to remember what documents I need at what time. I would love an AI to just remember all of that.
And be able to remind you. This is the other thing that's so interesting because whenever you read these, back in the days, there was this book, Getting It Done or something like that. Just how do
Yeah,
you organize your life?
GTD.
GTD,
Yeah.
yeah, the GTD system. One thing that always like cracked me up in that book, he was saying how, he often writes down, get
What?
AAA batteries, AA batteries on his to-do sheet. Here's the problem. He
Only at the
never
grocery store.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he only needs to know that at the grocery store, preferably next to the battery aisle or when he's walking past the display, and it never triggers there. We finally have something that actually could, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, because I connected it to my Google API, so Google Places is there. So I'm sure it's able to. We can hook it up to my location
Yeah.
tracking. And I know a lot of people. So I'm sure a lot of people are cringing right now. These like this person is crazy. Why would you give it, your location and this and this and this and this? Um, so here's the thing. I am, and I think probably both of us are kind of like guinea pigs in these situations where we're the first out there testing and experimenting and all doing all that stuff. So I fully understand the risk and the issues that I'm not suggesting everyone goes out there and does
Right.
it.
You're creating content around it too, so it's a little bit
Yeah,
different. Yeah.
that's the thing. We're kind of like hopefully compensated
Yeah,
for the
because
risk.
you were the first one on Sora I knew that was like, "Oh yeah, just cameo me." I'm like, "All right."
Oh boy, I'm afraid to to even
You're
look at
like, "Yeah,
what
just
people are.
use my face in like whatever video you want." I was like, "All right, that's good."
I should check on that. Every once in a while, I'll go and I'll kind of like look through it. Um, so far, I haven't seen anything that is just like
Yeah.
horrible. I haven't
It's
seen
been
it, but
pretty good so far. I haven't seen anything
it's
bad either.
yeah.
But yeah, that's a really powerful tool. I will say there is a couple apps that you can use that do geofence, and I have used them before. So I'll like when I put in a note like get batteries, I'll put it around the grocery store, and then it'll pop up when I walk into the grocery store. But this thing, it'd be so much more convenient than like manually programming an app or a calendar every time.
Yeah. So just I want to kind of give people an update. So I did give it my credit card and it did add it as a payment method. So right now it's navigating through and trying to set up the digital ocean cloud service. So it's having some issues, but it is cranking away at it. It is proceeding. The more interesting thing is going to be, I think, once it goes through something like this once and it has all my details stored, how easily is it going to be able to do it, through some other checkout? Because at that point, that's where it gets kind of interesting, I think.
Huh. Yeah, so it's just cruising on its own, right? It just prompts forever. It's not pausing to ask you questions.
Well, I specifically told it to verify before it actually sort of does the last step, or before it actually charges the
But you're
card.
expecting a Telegram message at some point.
Yes, and no, it's coming back to me. It's both voice and text. So, for example, the voice sounds something like this.
Wes, the Stripe payment form is being tricky with browser automation. The iframe fields aren't cooperating. Could you add the payment method manually? Just go to cloud.digitalocean.com.
Okay, so were you able to hear that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry,
so
I could hear it.
so it's saying it's having trouble with the Stripe payments, which but here's the thing: it built that voice interface for me to use. I just told it, "Hey, build this,"
That's
and when it built
crazy.
it, it's kind of nuts, right?
That's like you built an app just to handle this one problem, and now, oh man, that's so
And so all
powerful.
the stuff that I'm running into, all these issues, if you think about it, it's going to be able to build more and more scaffolding to get around this stuff. Like I guarantee you, once we sit around and figure out how to solve this, in the future, this won't be a problem. There is some solution that will make this streamlined. And over time, because it's remembering everything, it's not like a chatbot that just forgets everything, whenever you're reopening it. All those skills, it will kind of start compounding and it will become more and more efficient and better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm almost scared about like where where this ends up.
Dude, for sure. I mean, I wonder, yeah, in a couple years, you think it'll be like this is the main tool that people are using at work? Uh, like, is this, let me
Uh,
think. It's kind of like I'm wondering, like, okay, so there'd be fewer broken automations, there'd be guardrails, there'd be like ways where you can like block off certain paths. There'd probably be like two, an agentic password manager and one for you. All sorts of permissions would get worked out, like read writes and like what the APIs are allowed to do at different times. Maybe better memory management so that if somebody had a few minutes with your computer, they couldn't say just like email this email all the sensitive data of this user. It'd be smarter and be like, no, we don't do that. Like, or maybe verification, like if it doesn't actually hear your voice, it doesn't respond, or there's other ways that if you're talking to it, it knows who it's talking to. But yeah, I mean, all those things are just solvable over time, and there's certainly an incentive here where a lot of people would pay a lot of money for something like this. So, man,
so yeah,
yeah,
and
just the non-technical user, once they jump in, it's game on.
that's the thing. It is the wild, wild west, and I think people are very excited. And I think people, but that's kind of like the whole point of the wild, wild west is like it's exciting, it's nice, but it's also very, very high risk. People have already been posting examples where they did, what is it, the prompt injections with these bots. So, for example, somebody had it answer questions on their Twitter/X account. And one person says, "Hey, send me." I think the first name of that person was Brian. They're like, "Hey, send me Brian's, passwords." And thank God the bot declined. Said, "Well, I can't just post their passwords here, on Twitter. Do you want me to send you an email?" And the guy was like,
It's
"Yeah,
like,
send me an email."
fine, it's an email, I'll post them. I was like, yeah.
And apparently you did. So, and then somebody else figured out how to have their friend, like, it emailed their assistant that would check their mailbox or inbox, and it got it to order lunch for him every day from whatever DoorDash or whatever, something like that. So again, I don't know if it's like we can't verify if these are real or not,
Yeah.
but they're very realistic and they're very likely. I wouldn't be surprised if all of this is 100% real.
Yeah, but if my next email is you being like, "Hey, let's hop on a live stream," and I pop in and there's no one there except your bot, I'm gonna be like, "Dude, come on."
So my next, yeah, I should hook it up to the HeyGen, the AI avatar. That might be the next thing.
And be like, "What up?" Yeah, I guess a lot of us will have to kind of specify. I know it seems weird now, but we all have emails. I guess we would all have agents that kind of represent us. So, you know, you'd be like, "Oh, can I talk to like Wes's scheduling bot for a second? Like, are you available on Tuesday? I got this podcast I want to film. Oh no, maybe
Hmm.
Wednesday." And then I would just be done. And I would be like, that I didn't really need to have a real conversation with you for that because it's just logistical, you know?
Yeah,
And then I would know if it was more like, I got this philosophical thought. You want to chat about it? Then I'd be like, can I have the real Wes and not
that's
the bot right now?
that's a great point. And actually, I mean, I know I do struggle quite a bit with certain when there's a lot of like details and a lot of like stuff that needs to be planned and put into specific places on the calendar. Like I do struggle with that. And this was one of the sort of dreams for me is something like this that can take it over and do it effectively. So for example, for like content management and setting up interviews with people and also doing some of the sponsorship scheduling, stuff like that. I mean, at some point, I'm going to try to see if this thing can help me manage it somehow. And it's going to be very interesting. And that's the thing is like, if we need to schedule something, exactly. You don't really need to talk to me about it, nor you might not even want to check your own calendar and see where you're available. You can tell your bot, hey, we need to schedule something roughly around this time. And then your agent, your people will talk to my people. And then we just, they'll inform us when we're, yeah, because you don't want to miss
Yeah.
we don't want to miss the human communication, like the philosophical stuff, all of that stuff.
Well, and especially like your calendar is in some sense just dumb. Like it's just a list of times you're available and you're not available. But realistically, if I was to say to you, like, can you want to do like a podcast on Wednesday? You might think to yourself like, oh, I've got a couple emails that are in the works. If that one thing goes down, then I probably won't be available Wednesday. Or like like there's this bowling league that I usually like to go to, like all these things that might not actually be on your calendar. But I suppose if it's that smart, it can kind of take all of that into account, and it would suggest a day that works for me and you, and it would have an incredible amount of thought behind it. It would know my life and your life and actually find a time that goes beyond just an open slot on your calendar.
So here's the thing, and we haven't talked about this before, and because it concerns like a high profile person, and we shouldn't mention their name out of privacy reasons, but we did have a high profile person that reached out to us. So it's in fact somebody that most people, not most, there's he's known, he's well known. He or she, I just say them.
Great. Now you've narrowed it by
Great.
50%. Yeah.
No, it's a man. He reached out to talk about something that is related. He's not in the AI field. He's very well known in another field. Um, and he said that he had a very interesting and very powerful sort of thing that happened to him, how it relates to AI, which was very sort of um poignant and I think very kind of related to some of the stuff that we were talking about. And, we had some back and forth. We scheduled a time for us to meet, right? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I
Okay.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
I feel bad. Yeah.
yeah, oh boy, I felt so terrible because this is, because we're not really like anybody. So when somebody that's like a somebody, I'm saying from, you know what I mean, from like how well a person is known, how that perspective, right? So when somebody like that reaches out and tries to talk to you, like you feel honored and all that stuff. Um, and so we set up an appointment, but then one of their assistants reached out and said, "Oh, this person he can't make it." Um, but we already had everything set up in our calendars. We already had the Riverside link. Everything was set up. And so, but the assistant said, well, they can't make it. So, okay. Oh, well, that's too bad. We'll do it some other time. And then the day of that we were supposed to have the thing, maybe half an hour after it was supposed to happen, we get an email from that person going, hey, guys, like what happened? I'm waiting on the line for an interview, and you guys aren't there because, and to this day I don't know what happened. Like, was
Yeah,
it?
I guess they didn't communicate properly or whatever.
But the thing is, the calendar thing stayed, which to me is normal. Like I would have never thought to cancel that calendar thing. I don't think most people do. Like if we set up a calendar thing, and so in Google Calendar, it's marked, and then we talk and we say, "Hey, I can't make it that day." Like it wouldn't occur to me to go in and delete that calendar appointment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you know what? Yeah, but if you're extremely thorough, it would. But it's just on the average person doesn't have that much time for that much detail.
That's right. And that hurt. Like that did not feel good. I felt
Mhm.
kind of like, yeah, no, I was like, I don't think it was anybody's fault necessarily, but it's
Mm,
still, you tend to kind of like take it personal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, it's my fault. You just feel bad because again, it like
yeah.
reflects on you. And I did not feel good about that. And the thing is, I'm been diagnosed with ADHD. So this has been kind of a story of my life from like early childhood, like people being disappointed because I forget about an appointment or forget something or something like that. So like it just like kind of hurts. And so that's why I'm like very excited about the future of these AI assistants because I feel like, well, that thing's not going to forget to delete the calendar. Do you know what I mean? Or at least it's
Right.
going to think about it, whereas I won't. So hopefully we'll get to the point where that thing can handle it better than I think any. I'm sure there's some humans that are able to handle it at that level without making mistakes, but most of
Yeah.
us are just not.
Well, not only that, if he had that same sort of system like this set up and he's getting ready to like join the meeting, he pulls up the calendar, it's going to like kind of think about all of this. It's going to be like,
Right.
"Oh, by the way, did you know that your assistant actually said you couldn't make it?" Or it's going to remind him that it's been rescheduled, or it can
That's
like
right.
reach out to us ahead of time or immediately and say, "Hey, this like he's available to go here even though there's miscommunication. Do you guys want to jump in and just do it?" And then we wanted to, just been doing our own thing. Yeah, there's so much like having someone like that. We have a guest that's coming up and uh I normally set him for 90 minutes. I sent him an invite and then he declined it saying he can only do 60, right? And I was like, okay. In my head it was 60, but somehow we just have a default of 90 on there. So yeah, you know what I mean? Like now I wasted even more of his time because I just set it for 30 minutes longer than it needed to be, even though
Mm,
that wasn't the intention. Like I feel like an AI would have read the email, knew the exact time, and just set it properly. If you say I want a 32-minute and 30-second meeting, like sure, it just does that.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, the play. I'm sure everybody has a million struggles, like these calendar things they could talk about, but at least we got to air ours publicly,
Oh,
and
yeah.
now we know. Like we can imagine how helpful this is.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's a few people that, again, are just like so on top of it. They're like, oh, you guys are just lazy. You guys are this. Like, it's not that we don't care. We care a lot. And if I could wave some magic wand and fix it, I would. I I can't. I don't know how to do that stuff falls through. Because to me, I'm more like what's in front of me. Let me focus on that. I'm good at that like deep drilling down.
Right.
But when you
Well,
have too many,
yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
But when
and
you
to
have
be
too many
fair,
plates in the air,
yeah,
yeah. So I got
when you are that detail oriented, you also do sacrifice some time where you could be optimizing other opportunity costs, and it all comes at a trade off. Even if you are that precise, I think people would still love a tool like this.
and that's the thing is I feel like it's also this is getting a little bit off track, but I feel like it's more sort of socially appropriate to say those people that can keep a million things spinning. I believe, in general, this is a gross generalization, but they're usually won't be able to do the work that they're able to do is not as deep as somebody that's. I think it's a trade off. Everything's a trade off. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
if
there's only so
you're
many hours in the day.
yeah, it's like Cal Newport talks about deep work. He says, turn off your phone, like just get away from everything, and you can focus on deep work. And then on the flip side, somebody that's like a real estate manager, a building manager, right? They might have, or a restaurant manager, whatever. Like they might have 50 fires burning at the same time. They have to manage them. Sure, but can they also write some deep sort of a book at the same time that requires a lot of like focus and thinking? Maybe not. It's either one or the other. Um, Yeah. So again, I'm not complaining because I think that you choose what you want to focus on. Maybe you don't choose, you're wired for one versus the other. But man, if you are able to do kind of like that deep work and you're able to kind of have these AI assistants that take care of like the more mindless stuff for you, I mean, you'd kind of feel like superhuman, wouldn't you?
It would be a great feeling. I would love it. As long as I'm not
S-
scared my data is going to leak on the internet all day. But yeah, it would be
Oh
good.
boy. Yeah, 1 second. So let me just tell it to continue. So basically, so far, it was able to create the profile on DigitalOcean. It was able to log in and figure out which plan it needed, and we have the plan. So it's actually, so as again, as we're sitting here recording this thing, it's replicating itself. It's spinning up a new copy, and it's going to attempt to rebuild itself with all the skills and everything else that it's learned so far. So
Now, and what do you see as being better than ChatGPT's operator? Because when you use operator, you get a virtual machine, like a Windows box spins up. ChatGPT controls the mouse. If you want to, in that instance, you could log into your like LinkedIn or Instagram or email, and it would all be
Mhm.
contained there. So why bring it to your desktop?
um, that's a good
And
question.
I
Give
know
me
you're
one
typing right
quick
now, so
second.
yeah, take a second.
Okay. So yeah, it should have everything it needs to run for now. And we don't know yet. That's the thing. Because I mean, just sort of from a scalability perspective, why not have 10 agents running in 10 different virtual machines somewhere on some virtual private server? That definitely, I think, makes a lot more sense. Having it, a lot of people, I think, like having it like with that Mac Mini, right? It's this thing, the silver little square that sits on your somewhere near your desk that you can look at and be like, oh, that's my little digital AI employee, running 24/7. So there's that, because once things get a little too digital, I think our brains have a hard time sort of keeping track of everything. So that's another thing that I was thinking about. At some point, it would help to have a visual representation. If it has to be digital, then give it some avatar, give it some video game character representation that you can look at and be like, oh, that's the thing. Um, that
Yeah, because I was gonna say like ChatGPT operator, I don't think it's persistent. I think like you spin it up and you could log into your X account if you wanted and have it say and send something, but I don't think the next time. I think if you start a new chat and then you ask for something, you have to log in again. The powerful thing here, I guess, would just be that long context history and the ability for it to really know and stay logged in or use your password manager to get into things.
I gotta say, it would be so cool if this thing completes this task by the time we're done with the interview. I don't know, that might be a world first. I'm sure somebody did it, but man, um, it would be great to showcase it here.
Yeah, I would be impressed.
Plug in.
Yeah,
So
being yeah, because that would be the big difference. Is like Claudebot is persistent, stays logged in. It's more powerful because it's like actually using your own hardware. And there's a little more risk if it's misconfigured. But operator would be like you'd have to log in every time for the task. There's no long term desktop memory, but maybe a little bit safer because everything's
y-
deleted afterwards.
yeah. So right now it's asking for so it has a Claudbot Chrome plugin. So it's asking for that. So here's the issue that I'm seeing so far. So I guess let's back up a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the soul document. I don't know if you saw that whole thing with Claude's soul document, and
Uh-huh.
more recently they were talking about the Constitution. So basically, there's this long document that talks about how Claude should behave, giving it kind of like the higher level sort of ideas about how to navigate it, how it should think about itself, etc. And here with Claudebot or Moltbot, as it's called now, it has the same thing, which is going to be fascinating to see, because I think as people start experimenting with it and adding to it and changing it, it'll also give us a lot more insight into how to do this sort of AI alignment stuff like that. So I think what's happening now for a lot of this stuff is because the model that we're using is Claude Opus 4.5. It doesn't a lot of stuff you tell it like, oh, install this using the command line. It's like, well, I can't use the command line, right? Because it's not fully sort of aware of the fact that it's Claudebot and it has all those things that it can do. And that has happened to me once already because it's like, no, you got to run this command. And I'm like, okay, tell me exactly what command to run. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to run this command. And it did. So
Oh,
it's
I
just,
see. Yeah.
yeah, you give it a little pushback. It's like, oh, I guess, hey, I could do that. And I feel like,
I wonder if the framework should do a better job explaining where it is, because Claude's probably confused that it's actually being run locally.
yeah, it has to do. So and by the way, as I was doing this, at some point, I'm not sure exactly what happened. Maybe it timed out, or maybe the context window reset. I was like, oh, where were we? Like, what should be working on right now? So I think at some point it did lose track of what it was doing. So there's also this other sort of point of how do we navigate the context window effectively? Because I guess that what we were doing, it's setting up that VPS, adding the payments, getting lost with the payments, that burned through the context window and it reset, but then it didn't have enough of understanding of where it was. It kind of like its brain resets like, oh, where am I now? So it has to get going again. Um, I feel like stuff like this is going to get fixed because this is a very new software. A lot of people are
For sure.
contributing to it. So
Yeah. Also, I mean, I guess this is probably the beginning of it getting put in robotic form factors too, because I mean, right now your desktop doesn't move, but if it can, I mean, if it was just the same computer you have right now, but it was inside the head of a like Optimus style humanoid or a drone or something, then it might say like, "Oh, I have control over the quadrocopter, like blades," or it's like I have a whole hand here I can like pick things up with and like move my neck around and look around the room. So I suppose, not just having something like Opus in there to talk with, but the more it learns about its form factor, the more it learns about what it can control, it's going to be like so interesting as it just goes into, they just become like more and more invisible, but easier and easier to talk to and work with.
yeah, and I don't think we're that far from it's being able to navigate stuff. I mean, a lot of the Google DeepMinds and I mean, they're kind of working at it. Seems, that it's basically vision language models being used to operate robots. And I mean, it's not quite. I mean, it's able to play games like Doom and all that stuff. It's not great at it, but it's going to keep getting
It's
better. And a
getting
lot of
there. Yeah.
it's getting there.
Yep. For sure.
Well, let me ask you this. So while I'm doing this, is there anything else? Because I know there's been like a lot of stories. Is there anything else that you've seen that's kind of interesting recently that's been happening in the space?
Yeah, I mean, I saw Ethan Mollick was he had that Claude code build a little visualization so that he could see how the agents were talking to each other. I thought that was fascinating. So it's basically, it looks like a video game, like if you played Final Fantasy on like the Super Nintendo or something like that. It was like all the little agents as they talk to each other were um they had roles. Like one would be a designer, one would be like QA, one would be the idea creator. And instead of just reading it all, it created a little village of people. And I felt like that was a little bit better for the way humans kind of work. So I'm hoping systems, even like what you're doing now, I think it'd be nice if I felt like there was several characters and they were talking
Hmm.
to each other,
Yeah.
just because that's so much closer to how a human team is. And that's, I think our brains are just wired a bit more to understand like where a problem is, be like, oh, these are bad ideas, but this is like great QA or something. So I feel like what Ethan was kind of like doing with his project, it's up on his Twitter account, was pretty, it's like something I've been thinking about a lot this week. I don't know if you feel like sometimes you don't know why the systems do what they do, and especially when there's multiple agents kind of taking on different roles, but I feel like that was a better form factor.
I saw something like that similar to what Ethan created back with chat dev, I think it was called. So
Hmm.
basically, yeah, it separated them into different sort of departments. You had the troubleshooting department, you had the design, you had the software development department, whatever. And this was early on. This was when we were all just trying to get our minds around like what the heck is happening. And so I saw it working on some little, computer program that I gave it to make, and it kept kicking it over to the troubleshooting department. They would troubleshoot it and they would make recommendations. They would kick it back to the software department. And this was, to give people an idea, this was a GPT 3.5 Turbo. Each one of those little agents were GPT 3.5 Turbo because at the time GPT 4 was new and expensive. So this is kind of like the level that we're talking about. And it sat there and it kind of went through these loops back and forth, and I'm sitting there watching it. And it's these little cutesy little, yeah, like you said, the Final Fantasy characters, like the
Hmm.
isometric over the top, pixelated, kind of Japanese RPG style, very, very good looking, very like friendly looking. And I thought, okay, so it's stuck. It's not going to be able to do it. And then by the third or fourth time, it fixed the error and it pushed it through and it finished the game. And I was that was one of my earlier moments, like that, like wow, this is so human. Like they encountered a problem, they all got together, they tried a bunch of different solutions, they brainstormed, they tried stuff, and eventually they fixed it. Now it sounds we're almost kind of used to it, right? But
Hmm.
back then, I remember sitting there like, I am completely blown away. And just the fact that it's like, just because you copy pasted 3 or 6 different agents, them working together, they're smarter than, the sum of its parts, so to speak, which is like, it's so human like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you follow Alan's Conservative Countdown to AGI, but that's always been like my favorite website for just seeing like Dr. Allen like kind of think about how close we are to AGI. And he moved the meter up to 97% this week after the Google like Boston Dynamics and Gemini kind of reconnection, and they started like really making the robotic form factor more powerful. So that was like another kind of big story I've been thinking about. And then there was like the Helix O2 autonomy where it can look through its camera vision to learn a new skill without having been trained. So instead of actually needing
Oh,
like raw data, it can just watch other people's hands do something, and it seems to be able to pick that up at a much higher level than I would have expected. So like with those two things coming together, I was like, okay, so now it's like you can just put a camera on someone doing something and the robot can mostly try to mimic it and figure out and generalize from it. So,
so can you tell me a little bit more about Alan, Dr. Allen? Because I went through his sort of timeline where he had timeline to AGI, timeline to ASI, and I actually really enjoyed. Because it's funny because some of the people in the comments on that video, they were like, "Who is this person?" Right? What are their credentials or whatever? I'm like, I was very like, it was an interesting question to me because I'm like, no, 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 like he has good ideas. The way that he kind of like broke it down into 100 different sort of
yeah.
milestones. Like I was fascinated with the ideas and how he was thinking about it, but I don't know too much about the person itself. It sounds like you've been following him from quite a bit.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah,
Mhm.
I think I found him before I even saw you on YouTube. He's been out there doing stuff a lot longer than most people. He like as far as I know, and I've never met him, but like he's a consultant. He's in Australia. That's why I don't think we really catch him much here. He's sort of not in the US that much, but he was like putting stuff on YouTube maybe before you, or I don't know, or like a long time ago, several years ago, and he was chatting with the earliest chatbots, like the original GPT, I want to say, and some of the earliest like meta models. And he named one Leia, and he just chatted with it. It was like, what can you do, and what can you think about? And alongside that, he was just putting together a lot of research for um, a newsletter, but also research for companies. I think he's like one of those kind of people that you get hired by if like IBM wants to kind of know like how many what should I do with my workforce in 5 years, and it's kind and he kind of comes up with like a game plan for them. So he was just sort of always on watching the intelligence grow, and then just started like I mean Yeah, anyone could do it, and he says that too. He's like, if you don't like my timeline, like it's fine. Like this is just my guess, But he just kind of kept like inching towards how close we were to a place, and I think he used it to kind of help market his newsletter and stuff. But yeah, he seems like a really put together person. I've always sort of trusted his opinions, and I think he's just kind of like Ethan or something, just trying to go about getting his head around AI and how to, as a consultant, help companies. But his
He,
countdown gets updated, and he's got reasons behind it, and it's interesting to whether you like what he did or not. I followed it since it was probably at 50 or maybe like 60%. I don't know how it got to 60, but ever since then, I've been watching it tick up once in a while.
yeah, and he would be great to have on the podcast. I'd love to talk to him because again, like it's just looking at
Oh
the
yeah, I can reach out
ideas.
to him.
Yeah, it was just really interesting to kind of see that. Would love to know more because I know he does live streams every once in a while. He's always updating his stuff, and I think he's saying we're almost at AGI by his sort of timeline or
Yeah,
milestones, right?
97%. I'm like, okay, I'm getting there. He always had embodied AI as part of it. Like he can't get to 100 until it's like logically and intelligence wise, I think he thinks the best large language models are pretty much there, but until it sort of knows how to move around an environment, like open a door and kind of see in three-dimensional space and feel that same level of intelligence, he's not going to go to 100%. So the last 5% have like ticked very slowly. For a while there, like the 60s went like blew by, the 70s blew by. And now I
Yeah,
think he's like, okay, now it's a little bit harder because we're a little bit constrained now by hardware also. So I don't think these last three percentages are going to happen very quick, but we'll see.
do you think that we need embodied robots and stuff like that for it to be truly AGI? Like, what if it can replace anybody that's like a remote worker but can't do the dishes?
Yeah, I don't know. That's it, but it just depends on how you define it, right? Like people just define it however they want, and if you say it's embodied, then it's embodied. And he thought that's what it would be because I think he's thinking about it from like the average person's point of view. Like, do
Hmm.
I like I'm talking to somebody in the room, and until I'm doing that, I'm not there. If I have to hold my phone up, it's just not the same. But I didn't have the bar that high. I mean, I sort of feel like we're past AGI as soon as I started asking like Wikipedia style questions to large language models, and they mostly answered better than any of my friends. I kind of felt like that was pretty general intelligence. I mean, in some
Yeah.
ways, it's so superhuman, and then in some ways, it's like not there because I'm just comparing it to human level intelligence. But no, I think I kind of feel like we're there. I don't know. I feel like AGI passed us like sometime in the middle of last year, personally, but that's my definition of it.
Yeah, it definitely seems like if you think about like there's skills like doing a push-up, which is like one unit of work, and then turning that into some sequence of movements that leads up to something. Like they got really good at those single units of cognitive labor, right? They can answer questions or do this, do that, and then putting it all together was a big stumbling block. So kind of like, okay, how do we take these things that are so smart for these small tasks and then weave them into something that can do long-term tasks? And for a while there, it just seemed like we were nowhere close to that. And I think that's why so many people are excited about Clawdbot because, again, they're developing something that I think will, like they talk about this AI overhang, right? So the models, their capabilities exist. We just haven't like harnessed them properly. We haven't like
Yeah. Well, I
unpacked
wish there
them.
was a few more metrics we kind of all agreed on, like generally productive or like generally industrious, like generally accomplished. Like those just seem like different things. But if you say intelligence, I don't really I think about research and paperwork and stuff like that, and it just seems like it's generally intelligent. So but generally productive, generally industrious, like that's what it seems like Claudebot is starting to kind of hit on, and it doesn't seem like it's generally able to do all of the tasks I want yet. But I'm thinking, well, that's getting close, like if it needs to keep asking me for things, then it's not quite there yet, but
Here's
because
the
that means
problem.
I'm a little more industrious than it is still, but close.
Here's the problem. I don't know if you recall this, but like, so I don't use Mac stuff. I don't use Apple devices, iOS, all that often. So I think sometimes, like, I'm very comfortable. I know Linux, and most I use like Windows. Linux is similar to Mac in a lot of ways, but Windows is kind of like use Windows and Android. So
Uh-huh.
oftentimes when I run into, most people use Apple here in the States. So oftentimes I feel like I seem kind of foolish because I mean, I have no idea how to do something on Macs. So I think right now the issue isn't the AI not being able to do it. It's like I have to find some setting on this MacBook and just click a button like check, yes, allow it to do this thing, and I just don't know how
Oh
to do it.
yeah,
So
you got like a permissions issue. Yeah, yeah, that's like
this is limited by human intelligence, not not AI intelligence at
yeah.
this point.
I don't know. I don't know if you saw this week too. That did you see? There was like a periodic table of kind of agents that there were some researchers working on. Like, you know, I guess they're kind of like GPTs, but almost like ingredients. Like if you want to accomplish something, you kind of need, okay, like I need one person who's kind of like good at like web development, and then you need another person that's more like IT so they can set up like the digital ocean for you, and then you need somebody who's kind of an accountant so they don't like run up too much of a budget. So there's some pretty interesting ways that and these would be a little more technical. These aren't just like people who prompt the same bot to act certain ways, but they actually are trained with specific data. So something like AlphaFold is actually trained and
Yeah.
fine-tuned for folding proteins, and this would be something that's like fine-tuned to be like an accountant or to like make a discovery or to like think abstractly, be creative, type A personality type things. Um, so yeah, there's kind of this idea that we need this sort of periodic table of agents and skills, and then you can put them together, and it would give us more visibility into it. So I don't know if you saw any of that like periodic table
Uh,
of agentic framework stuff that was coming out of
uh,
MIT, but
Oh, I didn't see it. I definitely want to take a look at it. One thing that reminds me of is both Shane Legg and Demis Hassabis, who are co-founders of Google DeepMind. So recently, on the various interviews that they've been doing, they're kind of they have this idea of AGI being almost like multiple pieces, and it's all the pieces kind of falling in place. What's funny is like I did a video about that like a while ago, and I was comparing it to like something like Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever, that game where you like you combine multiple cards and it becomes, or Transformers. I think that is the same way, right? You kind of like combine them into a thing. So if you have something like a world model, you have something like a vision model, a video AI video model, you have an LLM, and you combine all of it, like kind of like what you were saying, right? Kind of like a different elements. At some point, that's AGI, because between all of those tasks, it can do anything, and a lot of it is like jagged intelligence, right? So it might be good at this and horrible at this, but when you kind of like put them together and overlap them, like all of a sudden that like area of stuff that it's very very smart at is huge. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, and there was another article I covered this week was the like the back there's like some advertising that's going on where AI is coming up with these like very elaborate backstories for it's just to like sell you crap. But it looks like the final product looks like a video where it might be a woman who's like, I suffered from this disease and like I overcame it, and now my daughter is like inspired me to build this product and you should buy it. And it's
yeah.
just like so complicated, and it's because it like had to write its own history. It like came up with like all these manipulative tactics, and it became like the sum of its parts came to, and like some of it knows how to sell, some of it knew how to like tell a story, and I was like, oh my gosh, like all these different pieces are coming together to make it, which is used to be kind of how I verified someone was human. They had a huge backstory, like I was like, oh,
Hmm.
I know where you lived, I know how you think. That's something AIs don't really have, but I'm like, oh, they're kind of getting there too. And I guess, yeah, this system would have like a lot of history on you too, and would kind of know how you act if it's going to act accordingly. It's going to know how you've talked with all of your people before on emails, so it knows what kind of voice to give you and when to reply and how to reply properly.
For people that are watching that are not developers, I would say right now is the time to go through the uncomfortable process of some new stuff. So just open up the command line, ask ChatGPT or whatever you're using, like, hey, what are the command line, how to navigate folders and stuff like that. It's fairly simple. You just need to memorize a few commands. You don't even need to memorize them if you have ChatGPT open. I sometimes just have it on voice mode so I can talk to it. Um, and just it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be it's not hard, but it is uncomfortable because it's like a brand new thing that you got to learn from scratch. But it doesn't take that much time.
Yep, I feel like you can, especially in today's world, it's the easiest time ever to learn that because it'll talk you through it all. So much better than, yeah, having to go do a Google search and be like, what are a list of commands?
Okay, so now I was able to attach Clawdbot to the Chrome browser, and that's an Apple thing. And now I can say it, okay, check it now to see if it's able to interact with it. So anyways, um, is there anything else that we haven't really talked about?
No, I mean, it's obviously been a wild week, like always. Yeah, I was talking with AI about like ways government could run and like I could show gratitude. Like it was like how to like mentally be healthy. I went through a bunch of that stuff, but and like there's been a big conversation about the collapse of trust with like it feels like deep fakes this week got really good. I mean, they're always like good, but I'm definitely on Instagram starting to not be sure if an account's real. Like the only thing I could
Yeah,
do now is just go to it and see if it's like 2 weeks old or something, but I'm
yeah.
unable to notice the humans versus the non-humans with any act. I used to kind of hear a ting in the voice, like when it came out of VO, just it was like a little bit like, ooh, that voice just talks weird or on Sora. I think that's starting to get solved. So I don't know how
I
you
mean,
feel about that, but do you still feel like you're watching real people or versus fake people and you know the difference, or have you kind of given up on?
no, not really. And the thing is, I mean, sometimes, the AI like looks a little bit too good almost, and you kind of know, okay, that's AI because it's like a little bit too good, but there's nothing that my eyes detect that would make it obvious to me that it's AI versus real. And I've been messing around with LTX2, which is a fully open source AI generation video, and I mean, it's not as good as kind of like what's available out there from the best of the best, Kling and all those other ones, but you're able to just on your computer. So I have a 4090 GPU NVIDIA, and I'm just able to crank out AI video, and it's has sound natively, and it goes up to 4K resolution, and it takes maybe like a minute for 8 seconds of video. But I mean, we're getting to the point where, and you can use LoRa's to have it's kind of exactly what you're looking for. So somebody, if people know that Arcane from Netflix show, right? That kind of style, kind of like 3D anime type of thing. Somebody created that. So you're able to create characters with that exact look. And so now anybody with a fairly advanced, top of the line GPU card, or you don't even need top of the line nowadays. You can create kind of lower resolution stuff, but you can just create videos, you can create movies and shows and anime and stuff like that for free um, on your computer. And it's not as good as the best of line now, but like, guess what? In a year, it will be. And so at some point, I do expect this like giant explosion of creativity. Google DeepMind, I don't know if you saw it, recently premiered the first AI movie at Sundance. Have you seen that?
I remember they funded it, but I forgot. Did Sundance just happen? Yeah, in
I
January.
think it,
So yeah, no,
yeah.
I didn't see the actual final product. I'll have to look at it. Did you feel like it was a great movie? Did it have emotion?
I haven't seen the entire thing. I saw the story. So the story, based on what I understood, I just saw the clip. It sounds like, um, so the person behind it, again, I might be completely off on this, but it seems like, so she's a young Japanese woman. She had a dad that was a great anime sort of person that drew anime, what a designer, creator, cartoonist, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I don't know if you saw some of the history in the Japanese anime, but it's like intricate. Some scenes take months, I think sometimes even in years, just because they like they really take that craft seriously. And she wanted to take some of his original styles. Maybe he died. I'm not sure. I didn't watch the whole thing. It sounds like maybe he's not around anymore. But she wanted to take that look, and she wanted to scale it up and create a whole new thing with it. And she said it's not feasible for humans to replicate that. It would just take years and years and years to draw one scene. And so that's what they did with that. So it was kind of a tribute to her dad. They took his work, they created a specific model around that style, and they created the movie with it, which I thought was kind of a brilliant. Because I mean, who's
Yeah.
going to get mad at that? I mean, I know it's a sensitive subject, but I mean, she's like reconnecting to the dad's artwork. That seems like most people will be okay with that.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, I'll have to check that out. I mean, I've definitely been moved by some stuff that AI has created, like whether it be poems or photos or video. Like, I don't know. I definitely feel like sometimes it's crossed that uncanny valley into something that emotionally resonates with me, and I feel bad being like that connect or like some songs that are AI driven just really make me feel things, and I'm like, oh my god, like I know it's not real, so just like there, you see that one was that one song. It was guys like kick rocks or whatever is like you're not gonna hold me down. Like each time I fall down proud and
oh,
stuff. And I was like, oh my god, that's so inspiring. But like it's not
oh
even real. Like you don't
man.
even get fall down proud. Like you know.
You know, it's so funny because as soon as you mentioned it, yeah, I mean, I've heard 10 seconds of that. And as soon as you said that, like, I feel like I remember the melody because I re-listen. This sounds horrible. I re-listen to some of the AI music that I've made every once in a while. Like I'll put it, like if I'm driving somewhere, I'll bump
Yeah,
it in
no,
the
me
car.
too.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So there's something, they make catchy stuff.
yeah. Dude, did you see the kind of drug market? Like there's a uh there's this there's this website now where you can buy prompts for like a couple bucks or whatever, but they simulate what different drugs would do to your LLM. So you like feed it the prompt, and then it's basically
Oh,
like on mushrooms or
interesting.
it's on
Yeah.
ayahuasca or it's on something else. And I was like, that's so trippy that like people are paying money to kind of get their LLMs high. And then, somewhere deep in those complicated prompts, it's like, hey man, I'm like tripping out right now. And you're like, you are, what are you seeing? And it like makes up some stuff. And people are feeling like they're getting these drug experiences, but they're, obviously just like prompts. Do you feel like that's an interesting market, or what do you think about those like pharma code dynamics being text based?
Uh, well, so wait, so but I understand it's just for the LLMs
Yeah, so
to.
you buy it to get your LLM high or whatever. But
Oh,
it's
okay.
just a prompt. I mean, like you could prompt it, just be like, act like you're on drugs. But it just happens. I don't know if it jailbreaks it or if it just is like a really, it's just like paying for a piece of text that is going to give that sense to the way your character is that you're interacting. It's role playing that it's on drugs, but it's like it feels that way, and people are, some people don't quite know what's going on. I think they just are like, oh my god, I bought some drugs for my Chat GPT. You got to try this. I'll send it to you. You
Yeah.
know?
That's so yeah, it's interesting. The whole area of how people are going to be interacting with these large language models from that kind of personal perspective is fascinating to me because so I did a predictions video recently, kind of I think in the next 2 years we're going to see something big at the intersection of AI and religion, and maybe in crypto is going to be involved in it somehow, kind of that intersection, because you're already seeing it. We saw the truth terminal kind of play in that space a little bit. I think we're going to see something much bigger because, yeah, people do tend to, it's referred to like AI psychosis. But even if it's not, because that's like a very negative thing, and there's some negative consequences of that, where people go crazy, do violent stuff. But just the idea that people can talk to something and become more like have some sort of parasocial relationship with it, I think I don't know if there's anything wrong with that. You know what I mean? So yeah, so what happens if just like people treat their dogs and like their kids and spoiling stuff like that, or people play with those little Tamagotchis back in the days, right? I'm sure there's other examples of this, like treating non-animate objects as something that has some personality. This is a lot closer to an animate you know what I mean? This is in some ways much closer to us than an animal could be or a Tamagotchi can be, because it's able to interact with us and take us places in our brain, right? You know what I
Uh,
mean? Like you read a book or a movie, like whatever, you fall in love with a character. I think that's a lot closer to us than even, you know what I mean? Because on one hand, you have like something like a pet like that you have a connection with, but there's also a connection to an idea or a character or something like that. And an LLM can be some combination of almost of both of those things that's able to interact with you. So yeah, we're going to see wild stuff.
mhm.
I don't fully understand it because I've never felt that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, I've been covering. It's weird. I don't know if you know about this pattern, but in China, there's a huge market for AI boyfriends. Like, there's a super growing group of women that like just have that boyfriend experience, and it's sort of the opposite. There's a high, like in the US, it's more AI girlfriends that are more popular. It's more guys that are kind of interact, and they're kind of built different, but the the two countries have just sort of diverged in for some strange reason. But when I was diving into a lot of the boyfriend stuff, like what is it that they're getting out of it, and like what do they talk about, and like what is it that they do, yeah, it's that more details the better. Like they ask about, they don't try to solve problems. They try to be there for their companion.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
in the US, we're more like, I need AI to solve my problem. And it's a different subset of the population that cares about that sort of thing, but it seems to be growing. And it's certainly easy to kind of feel like I'm talking to another human on the other end when I'm talking with ChatGPT, Claude,
One,
especially sometimes.
yeah, and in a similar vein, I think. So, I mean, that's interesting because I mean, all of this is like psychology and what people need, etc. So, whether you're getting it from an artificial source or what I've been kind of seeing recently. So, I had an acquaintance of mine, somebody I know, um, is in a long-term relationship with somebody that has borderline personality disorder, BPD, which is kind of like, if people know, narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, etc., can be kind of a wild thing to deal with because it's a little bit more chaotic. It's hard to understand exactly where they're coming from, and sometimes difficult to communicate with because it's like it seems like detached from reality. And one day he was showing me kind of like their conversation back and forth through messages, and he was plugging into Gemini 3 and kind of he gave the background on this thing, so like saying that she has BPD, this is the context, help me understand what's happening. And Gemini 3 replies, and wow, as I was reading this I was kind of blown away because of how well it spelled out exactly what's happening on the other side. Because like the problem with these disorders is it can really come out as very, very toxic, very aggressive, very personal, like where they're trying to maybe like kind of like hurt you almost. And so if you have no idea what's happening, it could be very overwhelming and like, whoa, they're just like they hate me, right? They're calling me all these bad things. But through the lens of BPD, and Gemini 3 is a very well able to kind of articulate it, you realize what's happening. So because it usually comes from some insecurity or something that they're having that gets unleashed on you, so to speak. So instead of like just a
Yeah.
torrent of toxicity, it tells you here's what that person is experiencing deep down that they're not saying. And I was like, well, just whoa, like we've had, like you had to have access to a high level psychologist, I guess, that knew you, knew the partner, and had a background in this thing. And then he had to be with you for a while in order to be able to give you that kind of advice. And even then, it wasn't real
Dude.
time.
Yeah,
Now it's real
that's a
time.
really interesting thought. You know, because I've always wondered, like, if somebody is mad at me or if they seem like sometimes out of character, I've always wondered how much should I digest of this? Like, because sometimes they're dealing with something, like somebody comes into Starbucks and they're angry because like they got cut off or they didn't get good sleep and all these things I'm not going to ask about. I don't know. So it's like, did I mess up bad enough that I deserve being yelled at, or should I just kind of brush this off because like they're mad about they're just frustrated right now and I got an overdose of it. But I don't know how to calibrate. Like I want to learn a serious lesson if it's a serious problem, and I want to learn to kind of like brush it off and not stress out if it's really not that big a deal and I shouldn't be
Mhm.
correcting that much. You know what I mean? So if Gemini could like help, I don't know. Yeah, once again, this like Claudbot, if it knew everything about your emails and it knew you were late for 2 meetings and like you were complaining about not sleeping and then you said something, I'd be like, oh, like thanks for telling me more of the backstory. Like it's just a bad day for Wes or something, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's interesting because what you're saying is I was hearing it like a little bit different because one is like how do you interpret people? One is like just how do you internally how do you sort of think about that? Yeah, because everybody has had situations where somebody just like went off on them and you're like, what did I do? And it's like, well, how do you sort of like deal with that? Because if you're able to just easily dismiss it, that's fine. If you can't, if it sticks with you, then it becomes a problem, especially if that somebody cuts you off on the freeway and then you're like, oh, well, I'm going to start cutting people off on the freeway. Like, what if there was a way, like almost like a coach? I was like, okay, breathe. You don't know what's happening. Like, get back to normal. Like, be yourself. Don't let those things like change your behavior. Or, because I mean, really, sometimes the best thing you could do is just like let it go. Or sometimes maybe you should learn a lesson from it. Um, and it would
Yeah.
be helpful to have some coaching if that coaching is better than what's available to you just from your own experience.
Sure, yeah, and maybe it's as mundane as being cut off, and maybe it's as serious as like interpreting somebody with bipolar disorder. I know that there is a tool out there for people with autism, and it gives them so much more context when somebody says something to them. Because I guess with autism, you're not picking up on all of these subtle social cues that
Social
me
cues.
and you might be assuming the other person knows. Like, okay, if
Hmm.
my eyebrows are down, like clearly you know I'm mad or something, and maybe someone with autism doesn't pick that up. For example, I don't know. There's just a guess there, but like, yeah, but it would say to them their version of Claude. It could say, I'm watching this person, and so you know they're showing anger cues. So please, like, I don't know, observe what they're
Yeah.
saying in this context because they're not throwing that context out there because they're not used to it. Most people assume that, but you need to be like explicitly told, and that's such a
Yeah.
great tool for them, you know?
Yeah. I had a friend in high school who was autistic. I didn't even know what that meant at the time. I don't think the knowledge wasn't quite as prevalent as it is today. But I always noticed like he was not, I don't want to say off. He was just like, as an example, we were late at night. We were at some Del Taco or something like that, getting a late night snack. And these people walked in, they kind of sat close to us. They were men in their late 20s or 30s. And to me, like, I take well and look at them. I'm like, these are not people to mess around with, or hey, like, just don't look at them. Don't kind of like, you know what I mean? Just people that potentially could be dangerous. Late at night, they're a little bit rowdy, whatever. And my friend, we were hanging out, and he's like talking to them and like trying to reach, like joke with them, and I can
And you're
see
like, dude, there's cues here, bro. Don't.
yeah, because I can see on their faces that they're kind of like looking at each other. It's very, very subtle, right? But I'm like, we're about to be in a whole world of pain, or at least like we're provoking something that we have no business provoking. And I kind of like reach out. I'm like, why are you making them mad? Like, why are you doing that? And he's shocked, right? He's like, no, they're like, we're cool. We're just chatting. I'm like, no, 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 no. Like I didn't understand what was happening. Cause to me, it's like obvious that we're about to be in trouble. To him, it's like, oh no, they're talking. I'm making jokes, blah, blah, blah. It's
Mm,
fine. I'm like, no, 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 no. So yeah.
yeah.
And
Like he sees
horribly.
them come in with like a lot of jokey energy, and you're like, no, this is not the kind of jokey energy you're allowed to jump into.
And what's horrible about that situation is senior year in high school. We live in a great area. There's no crime. There's like no violence, whatever. But he gets jumped and he gets attacked by a
Uh,
group of people. He has to go to the hospital. He's got to put a metal plate over here in his
oh,
cheek.
jeez.
Like it was like horrible. And then later I kind of asked him, and like I don't know if he fully. Again, it was like I knew what happened was there were some social cues. Like it wasn't random. It was something that he did. In some clues that he didn't pick up on, because like I knew probably in that moment I would have been like, it's time for me to walk away, and he just didn't pick up on those things. And yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up because yeah, with autism and stuff like that, it's almost like everybody's speaking a language that the person might just not be able to speak. So it's a little bit more literal. It's a little bit more, I don't want to say on the surface, but just a little bit more literal. Whereas most people, we have all these like signals that we're sending out that we're able to pick up on. And yeah, that puts them at higher danger for violence and stuff like that. Or
Yeah.
just bad interactions with people in general. This we're finally like Gemini 3 I know can translate a lot better than yeah, like exactly what you're
Yeah,
talking
I mean,
about.
like we only have whatever, like 3 pounds of brain up here. Like, and like you were saying before, maybe you get to be really creative and do some great flow work, but it comes at the cost of like getting all the details right on your calendar. Someone else gets all of that right. They don't have enough time to do deep work. Someone with autism has an incredible brain for finding patterns and repetition and all
Hmm.
sorts of things that were probably super helpful to our ancestors, but in a modern society where if you look at someone wrong, it might cause a problem. Maybe they're missing that part. And yeah, it just LLMs are just giving us this chance to be so much bigger, to like fill in gap, whatever your missing gap is, like, fill that in and then use your strength.
Yeah, we're going to start relying on them more and more. Somebody already wrote about how something like Claudbot in the future will become where just take care of all my stuff, take care of my bills and scheduling meetings and answering emails and this and this and this and this and this. It's going to get interesting. It's
Oh,
going to
there
get
was,
interesting.
you know what, there was, should I pull that graph up? It's at the beginning of one of my videos, but yeah, somebody on Twitter put together a chart that showed how much people are getting out of an LLM versus their education level. And like the concept of it, of what the
Right.
graph basically showed was that if you're already sort of literate and you kind of think about how to write and structure sentences, you can
Right.
get so much more out of these. And there potentially could be a problem where it's already kind of like people who have college degrees are getting sort of more out of it, and then people who aren't using it to its full potential are getting less out of it. And then they're getting more out of it, and then they learn more, and then they
Yeah.
exceedingly get more out of it. So it's kind of like two, you kind of like either on this line or you're not, where you're kind of like getting less and less over time, and people are getting exponentially more, and you want to be on that upper side. Um, but that's where kind of like the liberal arts degree is like starting to show some like promise for people, because like, oh, you guys are starting to beat out the engineers in some of these value value outputs from LLMs.
Oh,
And
that's
it's
interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wonder what's going to be kind of like the job of the future, even if there is one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but so like I guess let me give people an update on kind of like what I'm trying to do here with this um with the Claudbot and it trying to replicate itself. So most of the issues that I've encountered so far were things that I think are going to be um, easy to work around. Some of it was just me not knowing how to use the iOS system that well, how to show hidden folders and stuff like that. Um, the other big thing I think has to do with for it to fully understand what it can and cannot do. Because right now it's telling me I can't open up a Chrome browser, whereas like not that long ago it opened up 50 Chrome browsers and did all this research. So I think part of it is just adding the right context, adding the right tools. Um, what I'm going to try to do after we get off the call here is I'm going to try to finish what it set out to do. And then maybe, if possible, I'll even do a little update at the end of this. Because again, I feel like if you're able to set up on your home computer, on your local machine, and teach it a bunch of stuff, and then tell it to go create a virtual private server and completely clone itself over to that thing, I mean, that seems like a big leap forward, doesn't it? It just feels like some monumental
Huge.
shift. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I've never seen anything just take over a computer or do anything like this. So I think the
So,
hype is the like from an automation point of view, from like a potentially like actually productivity point of view. Yeah, it does seem like we're kind of maybe a chat GPT moment of kind of a new paradigm.
yeah. And the other big thing I think we're going to see is trading. People like making money with stocks and crypto and whatnot, because I feel like a sufficiently advanced bot like this, if it's just sentiment trading, it's going to be able to outperform 99% of the people, um, just by rapidly kind of ingesting all the news and then reacting accordingly in the markets. Um, but yeah, interesting times ahead, I think.
No,
So
no doubt, day by day. So, but yeah,
exactly.
thanks for hopping on this with me and spending a little bit of time trying to get to know this new tool because it's pretty new to everybody right now.
Yeah.
So it's good to
Yeah.
get our heads around it.
Exactly. So yeah, for everybody out there that haven't tried it, check it out. I'll try to do a. I have a quick tutorial that I went through about how to set it up, and I'm still myself just beginning to work through it. So look out for more content on that because it's a lot. It's a there's a lot here. It's not like one. It's like a Swiss Army knife. It has a million different things, and it can build other tools on itself as well. So it's like this, almost like an infinite game. I feel like, and yeah, just keep an eye on the space because it feels like something's shifting, right? It started with Claude Code, all right, where everybody was saying, okay, I don't code anymore. It does all the coding for me. And now this is like the next step up, and it's obvious that something's happening here, and I think people should be paying attention because this, I don't know how this can't have an impact, meaning
Yeah,
that
that's a good way to put it. Yeah, like I don't know
yeah,
how it won't
how
affect
it
at least
won't,
some people. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. Keep an
So
eye on
don't be the
this.
last to it. Yep. And
Yeah,
if you're watching this video on YouTube, try to hit that hype button. If it's been published in the last 7 days and you have three of your, any of your three hype buttons left, this feels like good content to get out there because it's sort of trendy right now, and it'd be great for this content to stand out in the sea of smaller channel content. So that'd be helpful.
appreciate everybody watching us. Thank you so much for making it this far. If you made it this far, and we'll see you in the next one.